Welcome to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, where PGA and LPGA players, legends, and top instructors share their stories, insights, and playing lessons. Join Chris every Tuesday night as he talks with the greats of the game. Tonight's show is sponsored by the French Lick Resort, the PGA Tour Superstore, TaylorMade Golf, the Bobby Jones Apparel Company, 2 Under, Ben Hogan Golf, Golf Pride, Srixon and their Z-Star Golf Balls, and the Sandiston Resort. Now here is your host, Chris Mascaro.
Good evening, folks. How are you on a beautiful Tuesday night? I hope it's great wherever you are. If it's raining, you know what? Put on some headphones, get in a comfortable position, and we're going to do our very best to brighten up the next 90 minutes for you. Tonight, I've got 2 more of the top instructors in the game here to share their playing lessons with you. We'll talk specifically tonight about equipment. We're going to talk about golf balls. We're going to talk about wedges. We're going to talk about bounce. We're going to talk about how to have the right perspective when you're out on the golf course with those instructors. So very much looking forward to that. We're also going to talk about some stories from inside the ropes from a guy who's becoming quite a regular here on the show. I'm very excited about that. Let's talk specifically about who we've got with me tonight. My first guest is going to be Srixon, Cleveland Golf and XXIO territory manager and teaching professional, Patri French. We're going to get a brand update from Patri because they've got some great things going on, particularly at Srixon, which you guys all know is the official golf ball here of the show. They've got to be going crazy still about Shane Lowery's victory at the Open Championship. We're going to talk about that, plus how to choose the right ball for our games. We'll also talking about picking the right bounce and the right grind for your wedges. How do we know if we have the right ones in our bag, or really which one's the right one for our swing? We'll talk to Patri about that. A theme for tonight's show is going to be around the PGA Tour playoffs and the Tour Championship. Now that the majors are over, have most golf fans checked out and moved on to football? If so, what does that mean for golf's playoff system and the Tour Championship? We'll get what Patri thinks about that. He'll join me here in just a few minutes. Following him, I'm going to get a return visit, like I say, from a guy who's becoming a regular here on the show, and that's former PGA Tour caddy Andy Lano. Andy has got so many great stories from his decade on the bag with Kenny Perry. He's also been on the bag for guys like Tom Watson and Peter Jacobson, Nick Faldo. So we'll talk about all of those things. And, fortunately, Andy has, been listening to the show over the last several weeks. And Shane Lowery talked about the plain truth last week when he was on the show. The week before that, Andy Trainer was with us. So we've talked about the plain truth, and they're working with Chris O'Connell. Well, you know what? Andy roomed with Chris when Chris was caddying out on tour for Peter Jacobson. So we'll talk about that. Plus, Andy also heard Ted Purdy sharing his story about playing in the 2005 Open Championship, which was Jack Nicklaus's last tournament. And all the folks there, as Ted was saying, all the players getting those commemorative 5-pound British notes and bringing those to Mr. Nicklaus because he was pictured on them, getting him to sign those. Well, Andy got a few of those notes himself and had Mr. Nicklaus sign them and a bunch of other things. So looking forward to having Andy back on the show with me. He'll join me later on in this half hour. And then we're going to round out tonight's show with a return visit from our resident instructor, Tom Patri. As you all know, Tom is a Golf Tips Magazine top 25 instructor and the director of instruction at the Hawthorns Country Club up in Fishers, Indiana. We'll continue our conversation from a couple of weeks ago about the new young guns taking the PGA Tour by storm. We'll focus tonight on their confidence because kids like Matthew Wolff and Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, those guys immediately started winning and finishing in the top 5 out on the PGA Tour. So showing no fear about the guys that they were going to be playing with, coming right out of college and boom, taking on the world's best and doing a darn good job of it. Like I say, a couple of them already got some wins. So my perception is that was always hard to do, right? To come out and have no fear. We'll see if that's really the case. We'll hear Tom's perspective. He'll join me about 45 minutes from now. So there you have it, folks. More great stories and playing lessons coming your way tonight on this edition of Next on the Tee. As always, thank you so much for tuning in and taking the journey with me tonight. But before we get started, I always like to remind you about my good friend Mitch Lawrence and his podcast, Talking Golf Getaways. He and his co-host, Darren Bunce, they let you know about great places to go stay, play, and even eat and drink while you're there. You can stream their podcast over on Golf Trip X, and that's a letter X, golftripx.com. It's also available on Audio Boom, Stitcher, and Player.fm. So go there, check out their show, and learn about some of the hidden gems that we have around the country. His twin brother Matthew also has a great show. It's called Backspin Golf, and his show airs Sunday mornings from 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time on WLXG ESPN Radio AM 1300 up in Lexington, Kentucky. My guest tonight, Perry French, is also a big part of that show. He joins Matthew in the first segment every week. You can stream their show online by going to WLXG.com or do what I did, which is download the WLXG app and stream it on your smartphone. It's a great way to kick off your Sunday mornings. Again, the show is called Backspin Golf, and you can stream it online at WLXG.com or on the WLXG app. And folks, as you know, we are sponsored by the French Lick Resort. Let's hear a word from our good friend Steve Rondinero about what's going on up there this summer.
It's a Pete Dye masterpiece, the Pete Dye course at French Lick Resort. Pete says its location on one of the highest points in Indiana makes it special.
The long views, you can see maybe 20 and 30 miles from many of the fairways and many of the tees and greens, and you can see it 360 degrees.
Donald Ross's Hill Course put French Lick on the golf map more than 100 years ago. It's where Walter Hagen won the 1924 PGA Championship, and the place where today's Symetra Tour ladies battle each year.
It's the ambience around it that makes the golf course.
Combine our many resort amenities with legendary golf, and you have a getaway like no other. French Lick Resort is the home of the Senior LPGA Championship, won in 2018 by World Golf Hall of Famer Laura Davies. Play the courses champions play. Plan your trip now, online at FrenchLick.com.
Yeah, folks, go online to FrenchLick.com to see for yourself what a wonderful place it is and to book your stay as well. And folks, well, TaylorMade Golf has done it again. You know the TaylorMade M5 and M6 drivers, what a tremendous story they are, both featuring speed-injected twist face, created through a revolutionary manufacturing process where every single head, and I do mean every single head, is injected and calibrated to the threshold of the legal limit. Basically, every head is made to be tour spicy. So speed for all. Check it out online by going to TaylorMadeGolf.com. Also want to give a shout out to our friends over at Srixon Golf. To play a ball with ultimate spin and stopping power, you need a physics-defying cover with molecular bonds that stretch but don't break. To play a ball that goes far and feels soft, you need a fast layer core with incredible feel and maximum distance. They're only in the new Z-Star and Z-Star XV golf balls, and they're only from Srixon Golf. Check it out online by going to Srixon.com. Please also check out our friends at the Bobby Jones Apparel Company by going online to BobbyJones.com. They've got their semi-annual sale event going on right now. Savings of up to 50% on some of their items. In fact, their best-selling performance polo shirts are up to 60% off. Check it out online by going to BobbyJones.com. All right, now back with me here on the French Lick Resort guest line is Perry French. Let me remind you a little bit about Perry's background. He is the brand territory manager for Srixon, Cleveland Golf, and XXIO Golf. And along with that, he's also a weekly partner, like you just heard me say, with my good friend Matthew Lawrence over on Backspin Golf. It's my regular weekly Sunday morning, 8:03 a.m. tee time. You can hear Perry sharing his thoughts, his playing lessons, talking about the equipment and all those sorts of things. It's a really great show, as you guys tell me, we talk about all the time. First segment, outstanding with Perry. He's also a Class A teaching professional. I'm very grateful he was patient with me, and he's joining with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Perry, thanks for coming back on the show.
Good evening, Chris. How we doing? Good to be back.
I appreciate you very much. Thank you, Perry. So, Perry, I have to imagine you guys are going crazy with Shane Lowery's win there at the Open Championship. Everyone associated with the Srixon brand has got to be all smiles, just like he was when he won the tournament. Oh. Talk about what's been going on with you guys since that victory.
What a great way for the summer. Major championship season to end with us having a 4-day foray of Shane Lowery putting on a pretty strong exhibition for all 4 days, and the weather changes on an outstanding layout, which was super challenging as we saw for the players, and for him to pull off a win, obviously from the Republic of Ireland, and being that it was where it was. I mean, in Northern Ireland, he was as close to a Rory McIlroy win as you could expect from a homeland scenario. So it was great from that aspect, and from us, from a brand. Shane, as it was, playing alongside another brand ambassador and JB Holmes, who unfortunately had a pretty failing weekend, but mostly on Sunday. We won't get into that. But Shane was able to he's really been a strong, long time, player of ours from when he first came out to play. And even actually when he won the Irish Open as an amateur, he was playing the Srixon ball. So those are a lot of things that Shane has as history with us. And it was great to see him pull off, it really was a win that was for us monumental, just because we had such great exposure. He drove the ball exceptionally well with our new 585 driver. He had the 2 and 3 utility UH85 irons that were, noticed by all the players. Who since that event called me, what's that club he's got in the bag there? What was he using? Putting the ball in play. So it's really fun. I mean, obviously you don't always get that. There's only 4 of those a year, right? 4 companies get to claim some type of major, championship, and it really came at a great time. We had just finished up our summer sales meeting, so we're launching some new products here in the fall. So I got a lot of ammo when I get into that pro shop to talk about what great things are happening. And the neat thing about Shane's product, 12 of the 14 clubs that he plays that are ours. He plays an Odyssey putter and a TaylorMade 3-wood. The other 12 clubs are all ours, including the golf ball, of course. And you can buy those today. Anybody who wants to play what Shane Lowery had in his bag can buy that club, customized to their specs. So that's a pretty neat thing as well.
No doubt. And I got to imagine, right? We're going to be seeing his smiling face on a lot of different Srixon things coming up here over the next few months, right?
Absolutely. He just, obviously from a current status, Hideki has been our lead professional player, certainly a Japanese, a native, and he's been with the company again for a long time. And him and Graham McDowell are our 1-2 punch out there. From a faces that people recognize. But yeah, Shane Lowery he just jumped the shark on this one. He's gone to the head of the bus, and I think we'll start seeing some things. He'll show and talk about his product. He's been a loyal player for a number of years, so it's not like, this is something that we just happen to latch onto. He's been with us for the right reasons, and that's trusting our products, trusting it with his game and his career. I gotta tell you the story, if you didn't know this about Shane Lowery a year ago. He told the story that he was at the British Open in the parking lot at the conclusion of last year's British Open, literally crying. And as he said, golf was not his friend. He didn't know where his game was going, if he had enough game to compete at this level. And for him to sit there a year later and to be holding the claret jug, it gives my hairs on the back of my neck to stand up. It's an amazing story that he could be at that depth personally about his golf game. I don't remember what he shot. It doesn't matter. He had that internal, feeling of how his game was or where it wasn't at that point, and didn't know what was ahead of him. And here it is a year later. He's now a major champion, and certainly in his world, the European players' world, it's the best event for them to win as a major. That's just the British, the Open Championship is that. So that's wow, it was great.
What a story.
Yeah, pretty neat. So we're excited as a company. We get to, and it's the last one of the season. So we got to all wait until April. So we got the floor. We get the last one. So,
yeah.
So we use that.
You get to bask in that glory, right? For what? Another 8 months?
Absolutely. It's the long haul. So until we get through this, as I was telling Matthew on the show, the silly season, and he chuckled. I had a little rant about this silly season called the Tour Championship and squeezing 4 major championships into 115 days. And I think, we'll talk about that maybe a little later, but I think that was, it's going to be a mistake. It's going to be a mistake just from an ongoing viewership. To condense the season, you saw what happened. We didn't see Tiger Woods play. He played, if you want to know this fact, in those 115 days, guess how many rounds, competitive rounds he played that you and I and the world got to watch after he won the green jacket?
6?
12 competitive rounds. That's in 115 days. That's a travesty. I mean, that is I don't know if Tiger was harboring a minor issue. He's trying to conserve, and be, but he wasn't prepared. He couldn't prepare, and the condensed schedule cost him some preparation time, and also playing he played in the Memorial. So it really hurt that part, which should have been a great story to the 2019 season, with him winning the Masters out of the gate. I mean, it couldn't have gotten off to a better start, from a publicity, TV, and then the TV people, they didn't get to see Tiger very much at all this year at all. So I think it was a dud, quite frankly.
Yeah, and that is sort of the theme for the show tonight, Perry, and I want to get back to some of the Srixon stuff here in a minute. But to your point, right, here we are, it's the FedEx Cup playoffs. We've got, 2 tournaments and then the Tour Championship. But now that typically in seasons past, well, once you get past the last, what used to be the PGA Championship at the end of the season, now the Open Championship, we start to check out. right? I mean, the football season's starting, and now we're starting to get ramped up, and our attention gets diverted to that. So I was curious to get your thoughts on the playoff system. Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Or is really most golf fans said, okay, Open Championship's over, I'm on to football?
Yeah, I don't think it's from a viewership. People are going to tune in. It is August. It's football season is a month away. We're in camps and all that. No biggie. I think the true golf fan, myself, yourself, that are going to follow golf through the long haul. The condensing the schedule doesn't do us any favors, quite frankly. I think from a viewership standpoint, I don't have a problem that the month of August, the third week in August, was the PGA Championship to kind of get the last player spot for the Ryder Cup, which is obviously going to be in September when it's in the States. Kind of get that. There's a lot of interest in that. Do people watch the Ryder Cup in September, Chris? Yeah, I think they do.
I think
right?
they do.
Yeah. Yeah. So why is it you don't want to be televising some of your most important events in September? There's a lot of golf being played across this entire country, from north to south, east to west. It's one of the longest periods of golf because of the seasons are going on. And just because football's in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, it's not going to affect that viewership. It is going to affect the quality of play in the fields of play that we get to watch on a regular basis. And that is what I think is going to be the drawback to the season. The fact that they've condensed the Tour Championship to 3 events, I think that's fine. That's all you need. It should be a very, sprint to the finish, right? You've already been playing all year to jockey for your position, so we don't need 4 events. And most of the guys were skipping one anyhow, right? Certainly the top of the heap were. So I think this is fine. Condensing the schedule on this end for the Tour Championship, it still should be in September. And I'm going to stick with that one, and I'm not going to let get that one get away. So I just think we should be back to the whole way. I don't like this event, as you can tell. I don't like the PGA being in May.
So you mentioned the silly season, right? And when I think of historically the golf silly season, that was towards the end of the year when we had the skins game and the shark shootout and those sorts of things. That to me was silly season. Now I think it's sort of taken a different definition because we've got all these sort of, because the PGA Tour, as soon as the Tour Championship's over, season starts again. So now we've got all these other events that nobody plays in. Is that the silly season now?
Yeah, exactly. Matthew and I call it the never-ending season of golf. That is, the silly season starts in the fall. That's when people really don't care. Okay, the fields are. Listen, if you're a PGA Tour player, it's an important event. We know guys are out there if it's their hunt for a living, and they have a chance to win an event in a very reduced quality of field, where these players in the 75 to 150 on the PGA Tour standings have a chance to win because you don't have many of the top 50 players in the world there, and that's good for them. But from a viewership standpoint, it's on the low end of the totem pole. So it's silly. They're going to play a couple of events just because they're trying to keep that keep that interest, and also keep these tour players, keep them happy. They play for what they win. So if they don't have an event to play in, they're not earning any money. So again, I call it the silly season because really, like any good sports category, you need to take some time off for people to recharge their batteries, get reinterested, and reset the game, for the next season. And rolling it into a fall couple 3 events is just it's just minutia. Doesn't really do anything for me. So
with ya. Yeah.
I don't want to talk. I love golf. I just don't think it has. It's not quality golf at that level. And listen, the guys who are trying to get their tour cards, the guys in the Corn Ferry Tour, absolutely, you need to be playing. Because you're not on the PGA Tour. You've got to keep all the opportunities you can to make a living, make some money, get some experience. But if you're holding the PGA Tour card, take a couple months off, be with your family, rest your mind, and get ready for the real season, which should kick off with the Tour Tournament Champions in January. So,
Perry, I want to go back to the Srixon brand. Right? Yeah. You guys have had a resurgence by Hideki Matsuyama started to play good golf again. Keegan Bradley has come back from the dead. Our friend Zach Sucher had a tie for second a couple of weeks ago at the Travelers Championship. Jerry Kelly having a great season out on the Champions Tour. I don't think enough people realize how good the players are and how good the product is from all 3 brands that you're a manager of. But let's talk about Srixon and the really good year you guys have actually put together.
No, it's been a phenomenal year, and you're right on with mentioning a couple of really strong performances by a lot of our staff players on all the tours. Not to mention we had our girl from Australia win the KPGA, the PGA Women's Championship. So that's a major win. We've had 2 major wins at that category and a lot of wins on tour. It's been a strong year for us, and the golf ball continues to lead the brand. It's certainly where Srixon Golf has been, a leader in technology. We hold the most worldwide patents in golf ball design. It's a company that's over almost 100 years old now. It's been in the business of making top quality golf products for as long, if not longer, and holds more worldwide patents than Titleist. So for most people, they don't know that because they know Titleist here in the States, and rightly so. Titleist is, has the brand market share and stuff in the States. But when we bring the whole world into play, they don't really quite hold the candle to what Srixon's done over the years of developing and bringing product to market for a longer period of time. So it's a neat story, and we're having some success, and it's fun to see, the guys and the gals who trust our product putting some wins on the boards. And you're right. It's not just, it's not just 1 or 2 players, our star players, but a Keegan Bradley coming back playing well. And again, Shane Lowery, great win that, Shane was having a better season. He had a couple close tries early in the season, so he was able to piece it all together and put a win on the board. And so it's been a great year for the golf ball product on tour.
Perry, speaking of the Srixon golf balls, and I'm a big fan of the yellow Z-Star. Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite golf balls. And you guys actually have a wonderful golf ball fitting section on Srixon.com. Talk about how our listeners can go out there and figure out which Srixon ball is actually best suited for their game.
Yeah, certainly. That's a great question. And there's a lot of product out there in the golf ball market, and a lot of product that's comparable, if you will, from brand to brand. But when you're going to buy a brand specifically, within that brand, you're going to find the micro brands of golf balls that really, not just from a price difference, but really a performance and technology story that really can make a difference in how to improve your game, improve some of your results that you may not even think about. But remember, the golf ball is the most important piece of equipment you play because it's on every shot. Okay? You're using the golf ball on every swing. Every ball is hit by the club. It's the golf ball first. So the key thing that most people have to figure out is, what is your speed? How hard are you striking the golf ball? That's the first criteria to match the compression of the golf ball, or what is the core. And the core is the engine of the golf ball, and that's where players need to get a golf ball that has the right core design to maximize the launch of the ball and the speed of the ball to create maximum performance and distance. And for most players who are somewhere in that 0 or 80 to 90 miles an hour club head speed, our lower compression golf balls like Soft Feel and Q-Star are going to be a great fit for those players. They're a little more durable with their cover design, so they don't spin as much around the green, but they also don't spin as much on your miship and on your full swing shots. And that's a good thing for most players in that category. As you jump up the skill level, you move to Q-Star Tour for players who are not quite the high club head speed, but they want a urethane golf ball that will spin and feel around like a tour ball. Q-Star Tour delivers that ball a little lower compression than the Z-Star and the XV, but it also provides that feel and maximizes, again, launch and speed. And up to the top of the chain with the Z-Star, a different golf ball than XV because it's a 3-piece construction versus the 4. The 3-piece construction delivers a little bit more spin, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's a little more spin to hold the trajectory and let the player work the ball a little bit more for players who don't spin it and have high club head speeds. The XV is for players who have high club head speeds and have a lot of spin, and they want to reduce spin. So these are all combinations. When guys want to test product, they got to figure out how the ball flies when they hit that stinger 4-iron or hit that low punch wedge. They need to know what the ball is doing, whether it's rising on them or when it lands, is it grabbing. So most of us, even good players, don't spin the ball a tremendous amount when it lands on the green. So most of us should play a golf ball that's helping keep its flight in the air, maximizing its distance, and holding a trajectory that we can learn to understand and control our ball flight from. If we do that, the ball's going to curve a lot less. And I don't know about you, but I hit the ball, my ball curves a lot less, I play a lot better. So yeah, That's just the way it goes. So that's a real quick synopsis of the soft feel Q-Star, and then of course Q-Star Tour and Z-Star balls that give a player some variance based on speed and skill. And the rest of it's, the pricing is different based on the design, but from a performance standpoint, just because you're paying $20 for a dozen soft feel doesn't mean it's the wrong ball for you because it's a lower price. It may be a perfect ball based on your skill and your speed. So that's the beauty of our line. We have we touched some price points, but we also touched the player skill levels. And of course you forgot to mention our premium ball in the XXIO brand and we have.
That's right.
Enjoy some XXIO golf balls. And XXIO brand is basically taking that speed technology that is maximizing speed for the slower cut head speed players, utilizing a golf ball again helps the launch conditions. And those are the factors that make your driving distance maximize in mine. It's getting able to maximize the speed that it leaves the club face at the proper launch angle with the proper amount of spin. And when you can get those three things lined up, you're going to hit the ball better. And most people are missing some of those three elements I just described. Their spin's too much, their launch is too low, or their speed's not enough. So when you're struggling in one of those three categories, you need to help improve that. And a golf ball will definitely, there is a difference. And it's not just because one's $100, $50 a dozen, and one's $20 a dozen. It's how it's designed.
So Perry, when can I get this XXIO balls in yellow?
That's a great question. I don't know if that gold paint and Thailand paint still will show up very good on yellow golf ball. So, you can't see the luster of that golf ball. It's got to be. I show people that golf ball, they go, "Wow, what is this?" And I say, "Well, it's really a good golf ball for your game, but it also has a look you haven't ever seen in a golf ball, as you could probably attest to." So, yeah, I don't think it's coming in yellow, but it may. The yellow golf ball is definitely continuing to be in favor with more and more players switching to a yellow golf ball for visibility and it doesn't perform any difference. It's easier to see and easier to find in the grass. So, yep, it's a neat product.
Perry, one more before I let you go. And we talk a lot about the short game on this show. Yeah. My good friend Tom Patri beats into my head all the time. Short game, short game, short game. Cleveland wedges, some of the best on the market. The RTX wedges are fantastic. Talk about, those wedges and how they can help us from even, like we talk about 100 yards in all the time. How can I take 3 shots or 4 shots and turn it into 2 with those wedges?
Well, you're going to get the man, Mr. Patri, afterward to really help take that to the next level. But that is the key. We have studied 65% of your shots during a round of play come from inside of 125 yards. Just take a quick think about that. 65% of your shots. So if you're shooting 90, you're hitting 60 shots, or about 62 shots from that inside of 125 yards. So that's pretty much for most players some type of wedge. It may be a pitching wedge at 46 degrees, and it may be all the way, down to just a full lob wedge, right? So there's variance in lofts that are a key ingredient to match up with your sets. That's one thing that we offer. The other thing that's probably more important than just the lofts, availability of lofts, is the type of wedge design. So you mentioned RTX4, blade, tour model, tour design, tour player driven by specs and performance to maximize their feedback and feel and what they expect from a wedge to manage and control their distance. That's what really wedge play is all about, being able to control your distance. Like I jokingly say, you don't want to hit a 50-yard wedge shot when you need 30 yards. That's not a good thing, okay? you want to be able to hit a 30-yard wedge shot to 30 yards, 32. You want to be very close. So, and that's what most people struggle with at the instruction piece of the puzzle. It's not that they've chosen the wrong wedge for the distance, that they've chosen they're not properly set up in the way to execute the shot. So, and that's something for Tom to get into too with you, but that's what we teach a lot in our wedge seminars, is how to grab distance control and utilize your wedges to make that happen. If you need a lob or more trajectory, you should use your highest lofted wedge. That may be a 56 for some, it may be a 60 for others. Again, depending on your skill level and your comfort of what you're used to using. But both will deliver that. You can make that happen. The key thing too is when you're talking about switching over to the CVX2, the new CVX that's now getting ready to launch. We had CVX for the last 2 years, and this is a wedge designed with cavity back performance for players who play cavity back irons. Who doesn't play a cavity back iron out there? Most non-tour professionals do. right? So why are you playing a blade wedge if you're playing a cavity back iron? Well, the cavity back iron delivers three things. It delivers forgiveness. It delivers proper bounce into the turf because it's got more bounce than most tour wedges have. And number three, it gives forgiveness. I said that twice. Okay, most players need forgiveness on their wedges, whether they're hitting a 15-yard shot or a 100-yard shot. You don't want your 100-yard shot to fall to 93 yards. You want to go 97. And that's what a cavity back wedge does versus a tour wedge. It keeps the distance much closer to the way you struck it. Now, if you miss hit it, you miss hit it. But I'm talking about something that's pretty close to your best swing, but not your best swing. And that's where a cavity back wedge design helps most players. And then we have the Smart Soul chipper and sand wedge, or what is a 58-degree lob wedge, for the player who just is maybe a beginner golfer or just not very comfortable with wedges in general. It's a wide sole designed to maximize what is the bounce opportunity to keep the club from digging extremely. So if you're a steep player or a player who just struggles out of the bunker, those two products, the Smart Soul wedge will help out of the bunker, and the Smart Soul chipper will help around the green for chipping and putting, or chipping and running shots around the green. So we have wedges for all player types. That's the beauty of our wedge line. It's not just for one specific player and say, here, I know you like the Cleveland wedge, but if you're not good enough, you can't play this. We have wedges to fit your game. And just like we do with the golf ball, there's the criteria we use to try to fit your game and maximize your performance. And like you said, you can knock 3 to 5 shots off your game in that zone of play if you have the right tools in your bag. And that means maybe having 2 or 3 wedges instead of 1. That means learning a little more skill about how to keep, where to play your wedges, not, where's the place you want to miss it? What is the yardage that you can maximum swing this club and not get in trouble? I see a lot of players struggling with wedges because they may pull the right wedge out of their bag, but they're not committed to the shot because they say, well, I was afraid of going over the green. Well, if you were afraid of going over the green in your mind, why were you using that lofted wedge? Go to the higher lofted wedge and hit it full. Don't try to decelerate unless you're really skilled. You need to learn how to choke down or just go ahead and hit the full swing shot. Players make that mistake commonly. They get in the shot and, I was afraid of going over the green. Well, it's hard to be committed when you're worried about the miss before you ever hit the shot. So that's one of the common mistakes a lot of players make, just in that easy to remedy, nothing instruction based, but more about the choice and commitment to the shot. And if players can, kind of stay in that mode and not find themselves trying to, I want to say, manipulate the yardage, but get to a yard and say, look, I can hit my wedge 70 yards. Well, when your laser shoots you and you got 78 yards to the pin, don't try to hit your longer wedge and feather it in there with 8 yards. Go ahead and hit your full wedge 70 yards and take your 10 or 15 footer and go on to the next hole. Don't get yourself in trouble by trying to do something you're not comfortable doing. So that would be my quick wedge tip to try to keep players, in their best chance for success, to not give away shots, because most people miss the green with a wedge, a chip and 2-putt, or hit it so far from the pin they 3-putt. That's giving away shots.
And I'll tell you what, Perry, that's great advice, and that's something that we talked about last week here on the show. And so for all of us that are weekend players, right? We're not out there playing 3 or 4 times a week. We're way into double digits in our handicap. One of the things that I think that we make mistake strategically is we're shooting at the pin, right? And there's all kinds of different yards, right? The next thing you know, we're coming up way short because we hit it a little fast. We're coming up way long because we thinned it a little bit. Instead of one of the strategies we talked about is go for the middle of the green. Forget about the pin.
No question.
Go for the middle of the green and then 2-putt and go on to the next hole.
Exactly. And a lot of times, as you and I know you haven't played enough golf, a lot of times you're playing for the center of the green and you push or pull the shot and it goes towards the pin. So, you actually missed the shot a little bit, but it actually comes out like you were hitting up the flag. But you're right. If there's trouble to the right, we have, and the pin's on the right side of the green, aim center. And if you happen to hit it 20 feet, take your chance of making the 20-footer. And in that worst case, 2-putt and go on to the next. But if you miss that right into the bunker, or if it's a hazard over there, you're making double or triple bogey. So those are again cautionary plays, much like choosing to make sure that the distance you're going is to make that full swing, commit to it, and not be trying to jimmy your swing in the middle and try to throttle it back or overswing and try to hit it too far. Just make a comfortable swing and be be satisfied with the 15-footer. And if you get greedy, most people, you're going to get in trouble when you start getting a little too greedy. But that's great advice.
Perry, remind our listeners before I let you go how they can stay up to date with all the great things that you and the brand are both doing, whether it's online or it's on social media.
Well, certainly, our three websites, Srixon.com and ClevelandGolf.com and XXIO.USA.com are the three names for product stories and product information, all the details from all the specs and all that. Each of the three brands are on there, and all our social media platforms from Facebook to Twitter. Yeah, we've got them on all the tours. We have all that we follow. Each of the tour has a specific to the European, the PGA Tour, the Women's Tour. So yeah, whatever player level you are, whoever you want to follow, click on there and catch some information about what our Srixon staffers are doing and how they're performing. So yeah, lots of ways to get in the loop.
Well, Perry, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of this show with me. I hope you'll continue to come back from time to time, share your stories and your insights with us. And you're always a joy to have part of the show. And I always love listening to you and Matthew on Sunday mornings. I'm there religiously listening to you guys because you're fantastic. Thank you so much.
Well, my pleasure, Chris. Appreciate you having me on, and look forward to getting back with you sometime soon.
Thank you, Perry. Say hi to Matthew for me on Sunday, and I'll, like I say, I'll be listening in.
Will do. Appreciate it.
Take care, Perry. Thank you. That is Perry French. Again, Srixon, Cleveland Golf, XXIO Golf, and XXIO, XXIO, XXIO. And as Perry mentioned, I tell you what, the XXIO golf ball, and we talked about this back in the early part of the year. Most beautiful golf ball you'll ever look at. A little gold flecks in there in the cover. It's a very unique thing. It's a pretty thing. Matthew always talks about how he gets them and doesn't want to hit them because they're too pretty to hit, and he won't let any of his friends even hold the golf ball. He'll just show it to them. It's a great looking golf ball, and it's a great performing golf ball. I went out and used them this past year on my buddy's trip. But and I'm also a very big fan of the yellow Z-Star as well. So Perry French, great guest, great guy. Listen to him with Matthew Lawrence on Backspin Golf every Sunday morning from 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time on WLXG.com or the WLXG app. And look forward to getting Perry back on the show with me again real soon. All right, before I get to my next guest, Andy Lano, I want to remind you about our good friends at the Ben Hogan Golf Equipment Company. Now, folks, if you haven't hit Ben Hogan irons since maybe the 80s or the 90s, I'm telling you, do yourself a favor. Go out and get a demo iron of their Fort Worth new PTX Pro, which comes in a black finish, which is outstanding, or their Edge irons, and take it out on the range and compare whatever it is you got. All Ben Hogan irons and wedges are handcrafted one at a time at their Fort Worth, Texas factory, so no mass production, no shortcuts. Now you can order custom-made irons, wedges, and hybrids by going online to benhogangolf.com, and they're going to build those irons to your specifications. The best of all, charge you a fraction of the typical retail price. Check out their complete line, like I say, of their forged irons, wedges, utility irons, hybrids, bags, accessories, and their new GS53 driver and fairway woods, which are fantastic. Check it out online by going to benhogangolf.com.
I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Golf Pride. In golf, light grip pressure releases power. Golf Pride engineered a secret that pros know. A larger lower hand encourages lighter pressure. Plus 4 technology is designed with 4 additional layers, which reduces tension in the lower hand to generate more power. Play Plus 4 and release the secret pros know. Now available on Tour Velvet, the winningest grip on tour. Grip confidence, grip Golf Pride. I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Golf Pride. In golf, light grip pressure releases power. Golf Pride engineered a secret that pros know. A larger lower hand encourages lighter pressure. Plus 4 technology is designed with 4 additional layers, which reduces tension in the lower hand to generate more power. Play Plus 4 and release the secret pros know. Now available on Tour Velvet, the winningest grip on tour. Grip confidence, grip Golf Pride. I want to welcome our newest sponsor, 2 Under Men's Performance Briefs, the unofficial underwear of the PGA Tour. Worn by PGA Tour players like Ricky Fowler, David Toms, Jerry Kelly, William McGirt, Jason Kokrak, and Matt Everett, to name just a few. Your buddies are going to think you're a stud if they're even seeing you in your underwear, but that's another story. And your girlfriend and her wife is going to love the side effects, a visibly enhanced profile. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management. It separates a man's most valuable assets from bodily contact to reduce unwanted skin-on-skin contact, providing less chafing, more control, and an altogether more luxurious feel. Start every round 2 under by wearing the coolest performance briefs on the market. Use code ONTHET20 to save 20% off your order at 2under.com. And that's the number 2, UNDR.com.
All right, now back with me here on the French Lick Resort guest line is Andy Lano. Andy has become a regular here on the show lately, which is fantastic news for me and for you, because he's a wonderful person, first of all, and a world of great stories. And you look back at his time caddying for 20 years on the PGA and the LPGA tours, on the bag for a decade with Kenny Perry. He's also caddied for Tom Watson, Peter Jacobsen, Nick Faldo, Shea Revy, Michelle Wee when she was out on the challenging the guys out on the PGA Tour, plus our good friends Dave Stockton and Richard Zokol. When I got to meet Andy for the first time and have him on the show, just absolutely blew me away with what a wonderful person he is, and getting to know him a little bit more over the weeks and texting back and forth and hearing his stories and his time, not only on the bag, but things that he's doing now post his caddy career. Got a wonderful company that he started called Golf Mastery, golfmastery.net. Please go online and check that out. And I'm very excited he's back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Andy, how are you?
Chris, I'm doing great. I've been fortunate enough to be coming off a family retreat and reset for the rest of the summer, and out here in beautiful sunny Washington. 90 degrees and not a cloud in the sky, so things are looking good out here.
Good for you.
Always a treat, Andy, to be on Next on the Tee.
I appreciate that very much. So, Andy, as you and I were texting back and forth between shows over the last few weeks, what I've learned about you and learned about really the game of golf is that there's all kinds of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I've had Kevin Roman and Andy Trainer plus Shane LeBaron last week on recently. They're all Plain Truth Level 3 certified instructors, and they've all learned, through Chris O'Connell and Jim Hardy. Well, as I found out from you, Chris caddied for Peter Jacobsen for a time. You guys actually roomed together at one point. Talk about your connection to Chris and those guys.
Yeah, I mean, you said it right there. Golf is amazing with the way that it brings people together from every corner of this earth. And the more that you're involved with golf, the more that you'll see that, for those that have either been involved with golf or, like you and me, are all into it and love it and have loved it for a long, long time. But I mean, honestly, I give golf all the credit for all the many fantastic people I've been able to meet along the way. But yeah, Chris, he came out on tour, obviously to caddy. He was a very good player in his own right, and, had aspirations to play and wanted to come out and caddy and kind of get a look, see what it takes, that kind of thing. And, I was friendly with Peter and Fluff, and, he was looking for, somebody to stay with, while he was out there. So we ended up being roommates, and, we got to know each other pretty good. I mean, he caddied, for a short stint out there, and then he went on to be, as you know, now one of the top instructors, that we have. So, small world. At the time, he wasn't intending to be an instructor. I don't know, maybe he was, but I know he wanted to play because, like I said, outstanding player, and was trying to get some nuggets from the boys out there to see if he could take his game up a notch.
And Andy, when we were talking to Andy Trainer, who also worked with Tony Romo, and helping him develop his game, and you were hired to caddy for Romo during the 2008 U.S. Open qualifier. Andy said he's one of the hardest working students that he's ever had. So curious to get your memories of your time working with Romo.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because I've been living in Dallas since 1995, and Tony kind of came to town shortly thereafter for his career. But, I had some connections there, and they were, as it turned out, ended up being connected with Tony. And, they knew and found out very quickly what a very good player Tony was even before he started getting real serious. I mean, as you can imagine, Tony's a natural athlete, in a lot of things, basketball, golf, obviously football. But anyhow, that connection led to there was a week off, and I happened to be in town, and they asked if I would be interested in going out and trying to caddy for Romo at his U.S. Open qualifier, because he'd tried it quite a few years in a row. It's a good release for these pro athletes to go kind of do something else, and it gets them away, and it still keeps their competitive juices up, et cetera, as you can imagine. I mean, Brady loves golf. There's several of the quarterbacks, they love golf. But anyway, I agreed, and so I went out and I scouted this course he was playing. It was the Golf Club of Dallas, and I'd never seen him hit a shot, and I went out and did my due diligence, so to speak, and I just met him out there for 18-hole qualifier out there, and it was a lot of fun. I can tell you the interesting story of it all was he drives up, gets out of the car, and I'm waiting for him, and we grab the bag, and he's obviously on time. We're going to the tee, and we get over to the tee, and I say, well, Tony, I got to tell you something. He goes, what's that? I go, well, I'm not a Cowboys fan. I go, Tom Brady's my favorite player, but I said, today it's me and you. We're going to go get him. And he just looked at me and kind of smiled. So, anyway, it was a great experience. I could tell just in warm-ups that obviously he was a very good player. And we had an excellent time out there, and he just missed qualifying, but the 4.5 hours I spent out there with him was really a lot of fun. And I think he enjoyed having a chance to get like some insight from a professional, on my end of the deal, since I do that at the time was doing it on a daily basis.
And Andy, a couple of weeks ago on that same show with Andy Trainer, Ted Purdy told the story about playing in the 2005 Open Championship, which was Jack Nicklaus's last tournament appearance, really. And Ted talked about the special 5-pound British notes that were created to commemorate that event, and how the players were getting Mr. Nicklaus to sign their notes there. And you were there as well. You got a couple of those notes too. Do you mind sharing what you remember about being a part of the 2005 Open Championship?
Okay, so for the 2005, I wasn't there, but I got my hands on some notes. So my player opted not to go that year, but I got the notes. But it was nice to be able to get those signed by Mr. Nicklaus, and to obviously have that memoir tied in with some of the previous history that, as it turned out, that I was able to fortunately have with Mr. Nicklaus, with Kenny Perry's first win on the PGA Tour being at Muirfield. So it was really cool for all that stuff to fall into place. You really don't know in life, as you know, every day there's surprises, there's new things that happen, but when you look back on it, it's pretty amazing on the stuff that did fall into place, because of golf, because golf brings everybody together, and, investing in a lifetime sport, like I try to, one of my keys in my golf mastery that I've developed, that I've in my new business is, it's a lifetime sport. Invest in it.
And Andy, as you talked about Kenny Perry getting his first win at the 91 Memorial, he would go on to win it again, I believe, in 2003. Kenny and Mr. Nicklaus obviously have a very special relationship. He's a Nicklaus brand ambassador, now out on the Champions Tour. What have you seen with their relationship? What is that like, and what have their interactions been like over the years?
Well, I mean, Kenny, Kenny has, I think he's won Memorial maybe 2 or 3, maybe 3 times. He loved that place, and that course was just perfect for him. But with Mr. Nicklaus, the very neat thing that I saw with him, and he's very consistent with over the years, is whether it was Kenny Perry or Hale Irwin or Tiger Woods or anybody that ever won his tournament, he always created a bond with them of some sort. And whether it was seeing them at the Masters or seeing them annually, obviously, at his tournament. But Kenny always treasured the time that he could spend with Jack and be able to talk to him about golf. I mean, when Kenny won, he was a young pro. He was in his 5th year. So, I mean, it was valuable for him at that time for his career. As he went on to win, 13 more PGA Tour events and now 10 more on the Champions Tour with a couple majors. So, that was a big day for Kenny, and it's actually a day that really, he didn't expect to come, that soon, because he was a super talented guy, but in golf, you just don't know. But I know Mr. Nicklaus has been great in helping him along the way with obviously his great experience. And I know that now, ironically, like you said, he's wearing the Nicklaus gear, so to speak. He's got the wear going the last time I saw him. So that's pretty cool stuff, I know, for Kenny.
And you were sharing a handful of pictures with me. You've got a lot of Jack Nicklaus sort of memorabilia in your collection. Talk about some of the things you've been able to collect over the years.
Well, the first coolest thing I got was that day when we won. You know, we were both like over the moon. I mean, I was quite, when you start caddying, you really don't know as a pro caddy how it's going to go or where it's going to go. But you obviously know that your goal is to win, or try to be with a golfer that wins. And when that happened, it happened, and it was a surprise to me. Not that I didn't have the confidence in Kenny, but you just don't know when it's going to happen. And to beat Hale Irwin in an extra hole, the U.S. Open champ multiple times, it was an absolute thrill. So we're standing there on the putting green after Kenny's getting his awards. He's getting his award and they're having the ceremony, and I have my yardage book there. And so Mr. Nicklaus happened to be not too far away, and I went up and I said, Mr. Nicklaus, would you please sign my yardage book? He said, no problem. And he signed the yardage book, which I still have. I kind of put it away, I put it aside in a box or whatever. And I actually used it years after until the course changed a little bit because I figured it was lucky. But yeah, I got that, and I've got one of his game used balls, and I got the note that you mentioned. And then later on, a couple years later, in between a break, he was looking for a caddy, and I wrote him a letter and asked him if I could be, on a tryout basis. Or try out to be his caddy because his sons were moving on to things, and he was kind of playing part-time golf, so to speak, but he still needed a caddy. So I wasn't able to get that job, but the class that he has, he wrote me a letter, back in the days where you didn't have internet and texting, and he dictated, or somebody dictated a letter, he signed it and sent it to me, and I still have it. So, that, and I have one of his rookie cards that I just happened to be in a card shop because I collect sports cards, and I saw this thing and I'm like, wow, I've never seen this card. It's a 1971, HOF rookie card. So I figured, you know what? I got to grab this thing. I just do. The guy's 18 majors. Until, he's one of the greatest golfers ever, and I've put 25 years of my life into the tour. So I said, you know what? This is something I got to have. So it went into the collection box.
And Andy, speaking of special moments, you had a moment with Mr. Palmer that you were telling me about, a nice one-on-one conversation you had with him in the locker room of Bay Hill back in, I think it was 2005 after you and Kenny won that tournament. What was it like getting to spend a kind of a private minute with Mr. Palmer?
Yeah, that was a total surprise. So, you're familiar with how the tournaments go down. Your guy wins, I'll see you at the locker room after. And basically, within 20 minutes outside of the press and your golfer, it's like a ghost town at the club because all the people leave. Everybody's out of there. So I'm sitting there waiting around in the locker room, and there's just a locker room attendant and myself. And, the guy, I was just sitting there waiting for Kenny, and Mr. Palmer had finished his duties, and he comes whipping around the corner, and he looked at me, he saw me by Kenny's bag. He said, hey, how about a beer? And I'm like, I'm not going to refuse that. I said, for sure. So, I had a sip, and he thought, it was great that Kenny won, and then he had to move on to something, but it was really cool. And I was just sitting there after he left going, wow, what just happened here? And then when I told Kenny, guys, Kenny's over still in the press room wrapping up stuff, and he just kind of smiled. And things like that, again, happen because of golf. The people that I've been able to be fortunate enough and blessed to be able to walk next to and to be able to, see how they practice, being paired with Tiger Woods or being out with Nick Faldo and being, watching all the different levels. Byron Nelson, one of my favorites. Obviously at the Byron Nelson in Dallas where I live, he would be on that tee at Augusta every year, and you'd go up and chat with him. It was priceless. It was precious stuff that I can't even really, put into words sometimes.
Andy, a couple more before I let you go. First, talk about the company that you've started now, Golf Mastery. Remind our listeners what you're doing.
Yeah, so golfmastery.net. So what I've tried to do with my 25 years of walking with the best and the greatest and seeing how they, how they practice and how they approach things and how they, become the great golfers that they are, trying to share those nuggets of wisdom and knowledge with any type of level of golf. I mean, obviously the youngsters is a great start, but I mean, I'm just trying to basically get people, like we've talked about, to invest in the game of golf for a lifetime. I mean, there's so many outside benefits that parallel life. I mean, obviously, in golf it's outdoors, it's exercise, it's mixing it up with all kinds of, people, whether it's race, religion, there's no limits to golf. Like I speak, to my juniors, I say, it's all on you. You don't need anybody to play catch, and you don't need anybody to go retrieve a ball for you. You can go and you can practice putting and you can hit balls. And basically, I'm just trying to inspire folks and just lend some of my wisdom and knowledge that I've been able to be fortunate enough to witness with my own eyes, and try to share that with some of these kids that, that are inspired to try to do the same thing.
Andy, I'm getting ready to head up to Boston on Thursday. My son and I are going to be taking in a couple of Red Sox games at Fenway. Looking forward to sharing that experience with him. Got to get your thoughts on the Red Sox before I let you go. Any hope left for this team for this year?
I mean, the bottom line is, to me, at this point, it's all been about the pitching. So, the hitting, they're ranked number 1 in the league, as you know, so it's not about scoring runs. But, every night, the pitchers are giving up 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 runs, and they're just not really holding up their end. So, the way the Yankees are hitting the ball and some of the other teams, I'm not going to give up on them. There's still, 50, 60 games left. And you can get a hot streak and get in the wild card, and then you never know, right? But the pitchers are going to somehow have to switch gears, because if this keeps up, I would have to say no. By everything I've seen, but the offense is certainly not going to be the problem. So that'll be fun to go to Fenway. It's always a treat to be there, and regardless of how they're doing, because that is one fun place, as you know.
Absolutely. Can't wait to be there. Andy, thank you so much for your time, my friend. Always good having you as part of the show. I can't thank you enough for becoming a semi-regular here over the last couple of months. It's really been great hearing your stories from inside the ropes and your experiences and that sort of thing. I hope you'll continue to come back and join me.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. It's a pleasure and a treat to be able to share them. And like I said, I'm always here for you. If you need any fillers, I'm usually here for you. You can count on me. And again, thanks very much for inviting me to share these stories. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy. Take care, my friend. I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.
All right, you too. Go Sox.
Go Sox, indeed. See, Andy. That's Andy Lano, Lano. Golfmastery.net is the site. Lano II, and for the second, obviously, is where you can find him on social media. He's been fantastic, and I really can't thank him enough for being kind and generous with his time and coming back and being a part of the show here over the last probably month and a half or two. So he's great. Follow him, and I look forward to getting him back on the show. All right, before I get to my next guest, Tom Patri, I want to remind you this segment of the show is sponsored by our good friends over at the PGA Tour Superstore.
This segment of the show is brought to you by the PGA Tour Superstore. See why golfers everywhere are proud to call PGA Tour Superstore their golf pro shop. Visit them online at PGATourSuperstore.com. Now back to Chris and more of the show.
All right, before I get to my next guest, Tom Patri, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Positive Vibes Golf. Check them out online at PositiveVibesGolf.com and give them a follow on Twitter at PVibesGolf. Their head covers and putter covers, folks, are a unique way to keep your mind focused on positive thoughts and a great on-course training aid to stay positive and put positive, happy images in your mind. Check it out on Twitter at PVibesGolf or see them online at PositiveVibesGolf.com.
And now back with me on the French Lick Resort guest line is my good friend Tom Patri. Tom is a Golf Tips Magazine Top 25 instructor. He's also the director of instruction at the Hawthorns Golf and Country Club up in Fishers, Indiana. And if you're anywhere near Indianapolis and you need help with your golf game, you need to go check out Tom. Check out his website as well, tompatri.com, P-A-T-R-I. So tompatri.com. Subscribe to his newsletter, get in contact with him, book a lesson, and he's a crazy Yankee fan, and there's nothing worse on this planet than Yankee fans. But, I always give an exception for Tom because he's an exceptional human being. But I appreciate your time again tonight, TP. How are you?
How did that series go last weekend, Chrissy?
How'd the series go the week before? Easy, TP.
How did that series go last weekend, Chrissy? I got the broom.
Not well.
I'm just doing a little dusting out here, doing a little dusting out in the room here, dusting it up.
Yeah, I tell you what, the Red Sox pitching staff, like Andy Lano was just saying, is just atrocious.
Well, guess what? If you put the Red Sox pitching staff and the Yankee pitching staff together, it's still atrocious. So
it really is.
I don't think we have 4 good starters between us right now. I mean, it's awful.
No.
It's awful.
It really is.
Awful.
And then the Astros going out and getting Zach Greinke at the trade deadline. When you look at trying to face that staff with with Cole and Verlander, and you add Greinke to that, and holy smokes! But yeah, at least like I said, I'm going to Fenway, and I get to have the experience, and it's always fun just to be in the ballpark. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing about Fenway next week when you go up there will be the hot dogs. So you'll be fine.
That's right. Unfortunately, true. TP, I saw you recently spent some time with Damon Hack of the Golf Channel. You guys hanging out together. What's it like spending a little time with Damon?
Yeah, Damon's been a good friend for a long time. Before I go to Damon, though, I got to give a shout out. My man Kevin O'Hara from Chicago, Illinois, today qualified for the Chicago Mid-Amateur. I was up there watching him play today, walked around with him, and he did a hell of a job. So I just want to give him a shout out. I know he's listening tonight, and I'm really proud of the way he played today. So good for him, Kevin. Go get him next week. But Damon Hack, Chris, and I don't know if you know Damon or not. He's one of the real gentlemen in media. He's been a friend for a long time. A student of the game, one of my students of the game, and he came to me basically as a relative beginner, and we've got him down somewhere in the mid to low teens now, and nobody loves golf more than Damon Hack. He's, I don't know if you know about his history, but before the Golf Channel, he was a sports writer for Sports Illustrated, covered the PGA Tour and the NFL, and then before that, he was a beat writer for the New York Times. He's got a pretty nice resume. UCLA guy, West Coast guy, now converted, lives in Orlando, Florida, but just a wonderful man, and came up here and we did a fireside chat for the membership, and it was really well received. He did a hell of a job, and it was nice having him here.
Tom, you give a shout out to one of your students, and now I talk about Damon also being one of your students. I want you to give a shout out to one of your junior players, a guy that a young man that I've been watching you teach and watching some of your Facebook Live broadcasts in the past. The young man, Jack the Whack. I want you to give a shout out to one of your junior students.
Yeah, Jack. Unfortunately, Jack the Whack had a rough weekend this past week. He posted 2 rounds we weren't happy with in the Met PGA Junior Championship. But he's a young man who is now 13, Chris, and he came to me when he was 7. And nobody more passionate about the game as a junior than Jack the Whack. He's a wonderful kid. He's a 3-sport athlete. He plays quarterback, he plays point guard, and he's playing golf. And the golf bug has definitely gotten him, and he's a really good athlete. So he's a little bit behind the learning curve, starting a little later than some kids competing, but he's made some progress. He broke 80 for the first time about a week ago in the junior tournament. He's all jacked up about that. I think this kid's a good enough athlete. He's going to figure it out over time. It'll be pretty good.
Tom, tonight we've been talking, sort of the theme of the show has been around the PGA Tour playoffs. We've got them starting up this week. We got the Northern Trust being played up in your old neck of the woods, right? Liberty National up there,
yeah.
Not right across the river there. So, do you ever get an opportunity to play? By the way, Liberty. You ever play Liberty National?
I have been to Liberty, Chris. Yeah, I sure have. It's a fun place. I mean, the golf course is above average, but the views are spectacular of the city skyline. It's a very cool place, actually. Yeah.
So your thoughts when you look at just the playoff system that we have on the PGA Tour? Good for the game, bad for the game. What are your thoughts about the playoffs in general?
You know, my one concern just with the whole playoffs and the wraparound season, and you know the fourth major being finished in July, but in general the wraparound season is, you know, are we going to burn these guys out? They don't have any time out. They don't have any downtime. They don't have any time with their family. They just seem to keep on going now 12 months a year. And, you know, we watched back injuries increase in golf. We watched wrist injuries increase in golf. We watched general injury overall increase in golf, you know, with the speed of the golf swing and the distance the ball's traveling. And now these guys are playing 12 months a year, and they don't really have any time to rest their body or rest their mind. And I'm concerned about that. I think the playoff system is exciting. Obviously, $15 million will get your attention. I'm not sure if long term it's a good thing for the game and the player themselves. You know, I'm not really sure about that.
Tom, you bring up a really excellent point, and that's around the injuries with the game of golf. When I see guys that are roughly my size, I mean the Justin Thomases of the world, you know, with the wrist injuries and that sort of thing, you know, swinging, you know, those guys swing out of their shoes. I mean, 125, 130 mile an hour swings for guys that are 5'7", 5'8", you know, 150, 160 pounds, swinging it that hard. And then, you know, with the divot that you're taking to get the spin that you're looking for and that sort of thing. Well, it just doesn't seem like it's a recipe for long-term health and being able to play the game at the level that I'm sure these guys want to be playing it at when they're 40, 45 years old. Is that something that the game needs to really think about, is how we're playing and how they're playing it with those fast swings and that sort of thing?
Well, that's exactly my point. I mean, we watched JT go through an injury this year. We watched well-documented injuries to Tiger, obviously, to Jason Day, and the list goes on and on and on of these guys who've been hurt and you know, miss half a season, miss 10, 15 tournaments, or going all the way back to the Frank Novelos of the world who blew their back out. And, you know, it's pretty well documented now what's going on with swing speeds and injury. And then again, like I said, you throw the wraparound season in there, no downtime and no rest for the body. Chris, I'm telling you, I'm very concerned about it. I'm really concerned about the well-being of this player and the longevity of each career. It's not, I don't think it's a very good recipe.
Tom, something that we've talked about in the past and something I'm concerned about is my boy Jordan Spieth. And every time I start to think he's finding something and he's turning a corner, you know, last week when he opened with rounds of 64 and 67, you think, all right, he's in the mix. Maybe he's starting to come around. Third round, he shoots 77 on Saturday. He misses the 54-hole cut. He's driving it out of bounds a couple of different times in those rounds. He makes 3 double bogeys on Saturday. To me, Jordan Spieth seems lost. If you were his instructor, what would you tell him to do?
Oh, you know, I think we watched a lot of players come out on tour who are not power players per se. And by the way, I think Jordan Spieth, when he came out, was one of the best drivers of the golf ball we've seen in a long time. He had a really good combination of driving the ball, both, you know, adequate distance, not overpowering distance, but adequate distance, and drove the ball relatively straight, and was a really nice iron player. And early on, we heard the media, and we heard him himself talk about the need for more distance. And obviously, things have gone sideways. You know, I think the problem with being his coach is it's sometimes when you go down that road, it's really tough to come back up that road. I think the young man is very much right on the fence right now of falling either way. I mean, I could see him recovering and getting it back on track, but I could also see him falling off the fence the wrong direction and we never hear from him again. Literally never hear from him again. We watched Ian Baker Finch do the same thing. You know, look for those 15 more yards, and here was a player in Baker Finch that was on his way to being one of the, you know, top 5 players in the world, and literally, you know, couldn't find forget the fairway, couldn't find the golf course. Jordan Spieth is at a very, very critical juncture in his life and in his career right now, and it's a very, very, very troubling time, I'm sure, for him. And I think he is, Chris. Just like you said, I think he is very much lost. And I question what they've tried to do with his golf game and where they tried to go with his golf game.
To that end, TP, to your point about, trying to get that extra 10 or 15 yards, and I don't know, maybe it's just how naive I am about, what it's like to be out there on tour. A million times better than I. But to your point, I mean, he was a guy, he driving the golf ball, 290, 300. I mean, he was never going to be Jason Day. He was never going to be, up there with DJ and those guys driving at 340 yards. Right. Is this a guy trying to get out of his lane because some sort of, hey, I gotta be a 310, 320 guy if I can compete? Because I think his competing was how good and creative he was with his short game, your big thing to me, and how
right.
great a putter he was.
Right. So obviously, like I said, he came out there as a a very adequate driver of the golf ball and a very accurate driver of the golf ball and a good iron player. And it's funny, as things start to fall apart, you put pressure on different parts of your game. So now he's missing fairways, now he's trying to recover, and now he's not hitting a lot of greens. Now there's a lot of pressure on a good short game just to forget to compete, just to make cuts. And it's almost like a cancer because it works backwards through the game. You look at a guy like Tom Kite in his career who never drove the ball very far, but understood how Tom Kite played the game. And Tom Kite never tried to change Tom Kite. And he played pretty nicely. I mean, he made a lot of money out there, won a lot of events, won a major, had a very good career. Jordan Spieth in 2015 drove the ball in play, hit a lot of greens, and when he did miss the green, he had a wonderful short game. It was a very well-balanced game. It was not a flashy game, but it was a really functional, really efficient game. And he has definitely lost his way.
Tom, last time, kind of going in the opposite direction, we talked a lot about the new young guns that have burst onto the scene. That was sort of on the heels of Matthew Wolff getting his first win and only his third or fourth start out on the tour. Since then, we've seen Colin Morikawa get his first win at the Barracuda Championship. Victor Hovland is a guy that's been near the top of the leaderboards, finished fourth last weekend in the Wyndham Championship. And what strikes me about these guys, and a lot of people are talking about this with respect to these guys coming out and having no fear out there, playing amongst the best players in the world, coming right out of college and feeling like they could come in and win, and they're doing it. And to me, that's different than the way it used to be. But like I say, you're a guy who played out on the tour, and you've been around golf for many, many years. Is this a different sort of air to these guys that wasn't like that back in the 70s and 80s, or was it always there? We just didn't hear about it as much.
Well, let's be factual. I never played the PGA Tour, but I played a little bit overseas and played what was the beginning of the predecessor to the Web.com tour, which is now the Korn Ferry Tour. Played some events on that. What was really a experimental tour by the PGA Tour back then. But I mean, Chris, the big difference now is, when I got out of school and turned professional, there was one mini tour in this country. It was called Space Coast. It was in Orlando, Florida. It was the only mini tour in the country. And other than that, which played during the winter, during the summer, you had to scrape and scrounge and drive millions of miles in your car to find an event to play in, whether it was a state open or an independent event of some kind, and really had to, kind of ragtag their schedule together. These kids play AJGA golf at a very high level, very well organized events, 54 and 72 hole events. They play, every PGA section has a really well run junior tour, within their section. There's a plantation tour. There's 5 different junior tours that are, playing pretty high level golf. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you saw this last week, the PGA National Junior last week, the winning kid shot 21 under.
Wow.
When the PGA National Junior Championship one kid shot 60 in this, I believe it was the second round. I mean, there were 62s and 63s posted throughout the tournament. So that's not even college golf. That's junior golf. Now they go from there. They go to college golf and they play at an Oklahoma State. They play at the University of Florida. They play at the University of Texas, or University of Southern California, UCLA, or Stanford. and they're playing against the best of the best in 4 years of these junior players who have already been well seasoned as juniors. Sure, by the time they turn pro, they are fearless. They have shot low numbers. They've done it under pressure. They've done it on a regular basis. They've traveled. They've understand the rigors of traveling. You know, I had to learn how to travel, how to build a schedule, how to make a plane flight, how to get from one event to the next. These kids have been doing this since they were 13, 14, or 15 years old. I think back in my day, more guys lost their card after they got it, not because they didn't have a golf game to sustain and play on tour. The rigors of playing on tour, the travel and the coordination that they didn't have any training in, overwhelmed them. These kids are not overwhelmed anymore. They're so organized. They have a sports psychologist. They have an exercise physiologist. Their college coaches really groomed them as to how to play and how to be organized and how to practice. They're not fearless. They're not fearing anybody. I mean, we watched Matt Wolf make an eagle right on top of Bryson DeChambeau like it was like he had his eyes closed, like he knew he was going to do it. These kids are ready to win right now.
Tom, talk about confidence, right? Because sort of, dovetailing off of this piece. Talk about, when you're working with the young players, your junior players, and getting them prepared to go play in some of these AJGA and bigger junior events. How do you instill confidence in them so that they don't fear being out there and being in the competition and people starting to watch them for the first time and that sort of thing? How do you build them up?
Chris, I think that's a great question. I mean, I talked to my friend Kevin in Chicago today when he was playing in this mid-amateur qualifying. And Jack DeWack, as a matter of fact, Jack DeWack is a kid who's, doesn't have a lot of confidence right now because he doesn't have a lot of experience. It's funny how as you get more experience, you get more confident, I think it's a process. I don't think you can skip steps. I think a lot of guys try to skip steps and they try to force things and they think I think they think they're going to lean on their mechanics and that's going to get them through. Mechanics are fine, but as a competitor, and understanding how to play the golf course and how to strategize the golf course and how to remain calm on the golf course and understand that, listen, in golf, during your round, there's going to be adversity. I mean, nobody tees it up and hits 14 fairways and 18 greens. That's just not the way it goes. Every round, I think, for the high-level competitor has 2 to 3 critical junctures in the rounds. There's going to be 2 or 3 instances in a round where, the way you deal with that critical juncture and the way you respond to adversity during that critical juncture is going to determine how you play that round and how you turn the corner in any given event. And I think that comes with experience. I think that, Freddie Couples in 92 was a lot better than Freddie Couples in 1984 at the Tournament Players Championship. And allowed him to do things at Augusta that he hadn't done before. I think that, it's like climbing a mountain. There's steps you have to go through. There's no skipping steps and there's no substitute for experience.
Tom, for our listeners in the middle part of the country, this has been your first season as the Director of Instruction there at the Hawthorne's Golf and Country Club there in Fishers, Indiana, just outside of Indianapolis. Remind our listeners about your golf school, getting in touch with you, and how they can improve their games for anybody that's even remotely near Indianapolis.
Well, Chris, Indianapolis is just about over now, so I'm more focused on talking to people about Naples, Florida, which will start for me this year on November 13th. You'll get a good laugh out of this, Chris. I have to leave Indianapolis sometime in early to mid-October and drive from Indy to New York because the old pro has to have cataract surgery and he tore the meniscus in his left knee. So I'm going up there, have two eyes done on my left knee. I'm like the Bionic Man. They're going to put me back together in New York in early November. And then I'm going to get my old ass in the car and drive myself back to Florida and get a little bit of a late start at my TP golf schools in Naples. Probably around November 13th, I'll kick off the winter season. So anybody who wants to reach me really wants to focus on Naples starting in mid-November. And, as you know, Chris, they can get me via my website at either tompatri.com and then certainly a presence on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So there's a lot of ways to find me. It's not really that hard. Now, I'm at the Esplanade in Naples, Florida, so there's a whole bunch of ways you can find me if you want to.
Tom, it's always a pleasure having you as part of the show, my friend. I always look forward to the every other week when I get to spend some more time with you. It's always fun. It's always informative. You are absolutely the best, my friend. I can't thank you enough for coming back and joining me again tonight.
Chris, I love coming on with you. I love what you do and how you mention the troops every week and how you think about those people that are overseas. There's so much a part of our fiber and sticking up for us around the world, and we should recognize and always remember those guys. And you do a great job in the show. Unbelievable array of guests you bring on. So many talented people. Andy Lano is an old friend of mine from 100 years ago, and I'm glad he's on with you too. And Gail Graham, and the list goes on and on. So, Chris, thanks for what you do for golf.
I appreciate you, TP. Take care, my friend. We'll catch up again real soon.
Thanks, pal. Good being with you. Bye-bye.
See you, buddy. That is the great Tom Patri, P-A-T-R-I. TomPatriGolf.com is his website. You can sign up. You can get lessons. You can send him videos. You can do all kinds of things with TP to get your game to the next level. And some of the things that he talks about on this show and some of the things that I'm working on, like I say, Tom has hammered into my head for the last several years about short game. And, quite frankly, when I go out to the range, about 90% of my time, thanks to Tom and the things that, A, he's taught me, B, the things he's told me, and drilled into my head, I'm hitting, I got a wedge or, I got some short game, club in my hand. From an 8-iron down, that's where I'm spending 90% of my time. And then probably 80% of the 90%, is with a wedge in my hand, because that's, if I'm going to, like you heard earlier with Perry French, right? 65% of the game is played from 125 yards in. So that's where I'm focusing my time. And, that's where I think we all should focus our time. The last couple of shots, I'll get out a driver just to say I did and, warm up and then go play my round. But, Tom's a great instructor. He's a 10 times better human being, than he is an instructor. Pardon me. And I can't thank him enough for his time. We look forward to catching up again with Tom here in a couple of weeks. All right, folks, time for me to put a bow on this edition of Next on the Tee. Again, want to thank my guests, Perry French, Andy Lano, Tom Patri, for joining me. And folks, we couldn't do it. We wouldn't do any of this without you. So I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show and making sure that we are a part of your golfing content. Please check out our website, nextonthetee.net. There you're going to be able to see what our guest schedule looks like. Plus, we link back to our page over on Podbean so you can stream or download any of our archive episodes. It's all for free on that site. And we're also on so many other great apps. We can't thank our supporters at Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audio Boom, Player.fm, our new friends at Launchpad DM. Go over to launchpaddm.com if you would, and click on the subscribe button. We'd really appreciate that to help propel us up to Podcast One and that great podcasting site. So we'd appreciate your support there as well. And if you have questions, folks, you look at our guest schedule and you've got questions for someone who's been on the show in the past or someone that we've got coming up on the show again soon, please let me know. I'll be glad to get that question answered for you. We'll get it right on the air for you if it's a guest coming up, or we'll get the answer to you if it's for somebody that's been on the show in the past. Again, thank you very much for tuning in again tonight. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.
You've been listening to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, where PGA and LPGA pros and top instructors and media members go to tell their stories. Join us the same time every Tuesday to hear more stories about the game we love from people who love sharing those stories with you. It's all about the great game of golf. It's all about